Welcome to Pep Talks with Jeanne. I'm your host, Jeanne Pepper. I started doing Pep Talks as a way to inspire you to do intentional acts of kindness and to further the goals of Blaze It Forward. Since Pep Talks began, it has evolved, and now I use it to interview people actively making a difference in this world through their volunteerism, community service, or careers. My guests are all here because they have dedicated their lives to making this world a better place. Join us as we delve into the hopes, dreams, and aspirations of these truly inspiring and hardworking people. This season, we will be focusing on the quiet superheroes, the thoughtful, kind, and forward-thinking community-minded individuals that teach us about resiliency, abundance, and how we can turn trauma, tragedy, and life challenges into meaningful, intentional action to repair our world. Welcome to another episode of Pep Talks with Jeanne. We have a special episode for you. It's not normal for us to release them when they're not weekly. This is off schedule, but this is such an important topic and something so topical. We wanted to bring it to you now. So we have in our studio today two prominent people in their fields. We have Dr. Michael Gillman. Nice to have you here today.
Thank you.
And we have Melissa Reiner. Thank you for joining us on this panel.
Thank you.
Michael, I've asked you both to be here today because we're going to be talking about something that is in the news all the time today. We're hearing about how we can prevent autism if we don't use Tylenol when we're pregnant. We're hearing that people that are autistic potentially have telepathic abilities that we have not been able to scientifically measure, or it hasn't been done anyway. But there's, this whole telepathy tapes podcast that came out in the last couple of years. It's been extremely popular. I am personally very curious about it. We have autistic people in my family. None of them seem to have any of the benefits of autism, unfortunately. We weren't gifted with any savants. Well, maybe. I can't say that for sure. But we definitely have people that are very good at things in my family, but I don't know if they're autistic. But I want to introduce both of you and what you do to our audience. Michael, Dr. Michael Gillman, is a board-certified orthopedic surgeon here in Orange County, native to the area. You grew up here, I believe. Is that right?
It's an awesome area to be from.
Yeah. You grew up right here in
Yes.
Orange County. Yeah. You began your higher education at Stanford University, so you are no slouch. You're also a pioneer in the field of orthopedics. You are a recognized pioneer in outpatient and custom patent-specific joint replacement surgeries. So that sounds very specific and something I'll probably need in the next few years. In 2011, you performed the first known outpatient total knee replacement in Orange County. Congratulations. Is that person
Thank
still
you.
walking?
Yes, he is.
Oh, good. That's good. You have been awarded the Physician of Excellence Award by the Orange County Medical Association from 2018 to 2025, and you hold patents for custom joint replacement, and you developed instruments to improve the accuracy of hip replacements. You're also a specialist on foot and ankle disorders, which I know from personal experience you have saved me many times. Thank you.
You're very
Thank
kind.
you. And I also know you because we have children that went to school together and are both now college graduates and living the good life right here.
Time flies.
Right? Yeah, it has been a lot of time because our boys were in school together, I believe, as early as the sixth grade, right? Sixth grade, they were together. So many years of education together and many field trips together as living together in a hotel room. And lots of stories, I'm sure. You probably didn't hear many from your son.
I don't get much info.
Yeah, but my son had about 2 or 3 words to share with me about the whole thing. And we're going to get to all of that good stuff. We also have in our studio today Melissa Reiner, who is a prominent autism and behavioral consultant, widely regarded as one of the top experts in California. You were a consultant for the Good Doctor television show on ABC, where you worked with actor Freddie Highmore to ensure an authentic portrayal of an autistic character. Yeah. And your work has focused on developing effective communication, building resilience, and fostering successful client relationships. You're an author. Yes. You've written several books, and you have a new book coming out called Conversation Over Confrontation. You're also a TEDx organizer, and you will be speaking at a TEDx event in February of 2026.
Yeah, I'm not the organizer, but I'll be speaking. That's okay. So,
okay.
But I'll be speaking in February. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Very
So
excited.
we can see you there, and hopefully I will be there with you on speaking also. That is my dream.
I would love it.
I know. So let's make that happen.
Make it come true.
Yeah. So I asked you both to be here today because we wanted to talk about, like real life problems and real life experiences with autism. And Mike, I know your son, and I think you've been very open about his diagnosis. How did he get diagnosed? Tell us about that.
He was young. He was about 2 years old, and the diagnosis was known, and we were open with the diagnosis from the beginning with people. And I think that has been very helpful. The natural tendency is to not disclose and not to be, a little concerned about getting a diagnosis like that. But we found it to be helpful.
Yes,
yeah,
it always is.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like Melissa and I we were talking before you got here, and like 50 years ago, they didn't diagnose it. And like,
you'd have to have like such a severe.
Yeah. I mean, we have someone in my family who it was born. I mean, he was never diagnosed, and my grandmother would never accept anybody ever saying anything negative about him. And so he lived a very normative life for someone that was very neurodivergent. And we still don't know exactly what it is. And I'm not a clinician who can diagnose these things, but I would be willing to bet that he's on that spectrum as well. But yeah, you can live a completely normal life and be a productive member of society.
Absolutely.
And yet people are so afraid of these diagnoses. Yeah. And I don't know, what do you think of the idea that autistic people could have an evolutionary advantage even that we don't understand yet?
I think that's possible. And of course, we talk about a spectrum. And
Yeah.
I think not every kid has splintered skills, but there are some that do. And I think from my perspective, it's good to focus on ability rather than disability.
I like that. That's really positive. And your son has it's been determined, had some really unique abilities.
Well, we didn't find that out early, and there were many years where we had no idea.
Yeah.
It took him failing and not doing well in middle school and 3 years in a different type of school to figure out that he had an ability.
Yeah. Tell us, like, what was it that led you to look to try to find out what his diagnosis was like? Obviously, there were some behavioral issues that led you to think there could be something, so you went and you had him diagnosed. But what were you seeing as a parent?
He had a delay in verbal ability, and in some ways, it seemed as though from the time he was younger than 2, he had regression in development and skills.
But you were also you also had another child.
We had an older child at that time.
Yeah.
And his older brother had normal developmental milestones, and he wasn't progressing. And I think that the language was, our biggest concern originally.
Yeah, I had the exact same situation in my house. I had my older son who was really advanced in a lot of ways. And I mean, verbally, like more than normal, my son Blaze. And then we had a child 39 months later, or no, that's not right. 28 months later, I had Jay. And he also wasn't showing, normal development, verbal development, which I could see because I had a child that was so verbal. I knew that, well, he wasn't like his brother, but does that mean he's not normal? I don't know. But then I was always comforted with the fact that my mother would tell me all the time, you didn't speak until you were 4 years old.
Interesting.
So, yeah, isn't that interesting?
Right.
Not until I was 4 years old. And my mom says that the first thing I ever said was, Daddy, will you turn off the lights? It's bothering my eyes.
Yeah. It's your first word, not
First
dad,
thing
or mom, right?
I ever said was that. Yeah, no dad, no mama, just that.
And also the idea of what's normal, right? And so recognizing that, we're all on a spectrum, and the idea of what is normal is so specific to each person. So while, yes, you can't, and it's so hard not to, but you're not supposed to compare siblings to one another because everyone is on their own, stages, not ages, but it's something to be aware of. And because I know some families where they don't have an older sibling or another child for an older sibling for that child. And they don't really have a frame of reference. So they may let things go a little bit farther along down the road than they would have if they had some frame of reference. So it's nice to have a frame of reference, and also we have to be careful not to compare. It's a balance.
Yeah. So knowing what we know now about Tylenol and autism, would you have your wife use Tylenol now, knowing that it could cause autism? Would you purposefully have her use Tylenol, or as a doctor, would you say that's not medically advised? What would you do?
I am open-minded to what may have led to an increase in autism. There's something environmental. It's not just that it's being better diagnosed. Could some children be susceptible to Tylenol? Yes. Should it not be used in pregnancy? That's a leap. I think this is going to make many parents and pediatricians, question how much they're recommending it. But I there are many, many things that go into what causes autism. Some genetic factors and some environmental factors.
Yeah, let's talk about that, genetics. Melissa, genetics?
Well, I think that there definitely, like I've seen families where there doesn't seem to be any genetic, component. And then I had worked with this little boy. He was in preschool, and I had only met the mom. And she kept saying, he's just like his dad. He's just like his dad. And then one day the dad came, and I was like, oh, he is just like you. And I was like, I see the resemblance. But, and I think that also certainly many, many years ago for, people that I know I'm in close relationship with, where a grandfather clearly was undiagnosed.
But still managed to have children and was a family man.
He worked, 60 years and, the same, successful. But because it's not about, it's not about just, it's like, it's just not one specific thing. It's first of all, diagnosis, it's a pathogenesis. It's not just one thing that causes autism, right? It's a series of things, and somebody once, and I'd love your opinion, but a doctor told me that, if you have every precursor to cancer but one, you may never get cancer, sort of, and it's in a similar way, sometimes people say if there's a stressor on the immune system, or if there's something that kind of tips that scale, that could be.
I think that's plausible. I think the important thing that I'm excited about is to actually have people actually looking at it, because for decades, no one has really, openly said what could be causing the increase in
that's a great point. Even if we think it's a ridiculous analysis with the Tylenol, based on the fact that there hasn't really been any sound medical research done to support the premise that it causes autism, or potentially could, it still now is shining a light on a problem that hasn't. And is it a problem? We don't even know if autism is a problem. I am not of the belief that it necessarily is, from what I've seen, and Melissa would probably argue with me about this, but the people that I know that are autistic are generally very peaceful, very logical, very authentic, very truthful, to the point that they are seen as maybe not having good social skills because they are so truthful and will point out the obvious, which, in our society,
I also think is awesome.
Which is awesome. In my opinion, I wish more people could be like this. So, if everyone was autistic and would be honest with each other about everything, because that's just how they were wired, I think that would be a great thing.
Amy Schumer's husband has autism. Amy Schumer?
I know who Amy Schumer is. I did not know that.
I love her so much.
She's great.
In love with her. And she said that she was going on stage for some, performance or for a special or something. And she was like, does this outfit look okay? And he goes, well, there's nothing we can do about it now. And or well, it's too late now. Or and she was, or once she had seen a friend of hers at a party, leave with another guy or something. And then months later, they were all at lunch together, but she was with her boyfriend that was not that guy. Mm-hmm. And she was like, well, she said something, and he goes, well, no, we saw you at that party leaving with that man. And she was like, no, honey.
Wow.
But I think that the idea of, some kids are violent, some kids are not, some kids have aggression, some kids don't. And every individual is unique and has, I would say, their stretches and their strengths, right? And so, what is to some people offensive is, I think, awesome. And so I love that she also says something very funny. There was a moment where it was raining a little bit, and she was talking to her husband about how much she loves him and appreciates him and their son together, and just thank you for being in my life. And then he goes, I'm going to close the windows in the car. And then she goes, then we play the game, autism or just a man? And so, I love her so much.
Yeah, that's like a really great example of why I am totally great with this, and I hope that people keep taking Tylenol.
It's like, I mean, but that's it's like, is there something to cure, right? Because the people I work with, the adults, the children, the families, it's nothing that anyone wants cured. We want to help build up, and fill in any gaps in learning or in social graces. But we also don't need them to be anyone other than exactly who they are, because they're amazing. You said that there's so much value.
Yeah, I think there's value. I think the challenge is that for many of us, we have years of intervention, difficult behaviors. And when you're going through that, it's very hard to appreciate that, 10, 20 years later, you may have a kid that's doing amazing things because those behaviors and those years are challenging.
Yeah, really challenging. And your family had multiple challenges also. I don't know if
well,
you want to get into that.
I don't know if you want to talk about that now or later.
Well, we're going to get to it. But yeah, I mean, while you were dealing with, this diagnosis and all of the things that go along with trying to educate a kid that is different, you were dealing with a son that had another diagnosis. Your youngest child was diagnosed.
Our youngest is a brain cancer survivor, by the grace of,
God.
the powers that be.
Yeah.
And it was really a good frame of reference, though, because here we had a kid that was given a 10% chance of living for 5 years, and now it's 16 years later. But it made the challenges of autism not seem that daunting.
Right.
Gives you perspective.
Right.
Yeah.
It's like I've heard people say before that, God gives you challenges that you can handle.
Yeah.
I guess
fortunately,
you were equipped.
Fortunately, a very tough wife who, stayed positive.
Yeah. Wonderful mother.
Strong.
Yeah.
So strong. I used to talk to her about these issues when it was ongoing, because I've known this family for quite a while. And she was always just so positive and just indomitable spirit.
Love that.
Yeah, just
that.
very brave and very just inspirational. I would have loved to have had her here, but I think she's working today.
I think she's working.
Yeah.
She took a hiatus, and I give her credit because she's a physical therapist, and not everyone can afford to do so. There are plenty of families that just don't have the time to be able to invest in their kid. But after we went through UCLA program and behavioral therapy, that she was able to invest time, which made a difference, I think, in his outcome.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, when you have
she had a specialist.
My whole work is family centric, so it's not just, I don't just work with an individual. I work with the whole family unit, because, as you know, siblings can sometimes be on the back burner while we're putting out other fires, and I think it's really important to be inclusive of the whole family, because you need it, your wife needs it, everyone is a contributor, and of course I think the more parents are involved, the better the outcome.
Yeah. What was your most significant challenge as a parent with dealing with autism with your son?
It was the early frustration. For the first year, we were doing everything in our power, and he didn't progress 1 inch.
Oh, wow.
And so we just, to Rebecca's credit, she spent living in Los Angeles in a UCLA program that is still here, partial hospitalization. And that was a game changer for him, because it was a different technique of how to, give him what he needed.
So that's at UCLA. There was a residential program that you could have your child in?
Yes.
And how do you know what
it's a day program. So it was a 5 day a week, 8 to 9 hour a day program for, I think it was 8 weeks.
And he was young when this happened.
And he was 3. Oh. But it was after a year of not really seeing any progress.
And then you saw growth.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yes, it was quick.
So was he not speaking? What was the
He was
tipped you
still
off?
not progressing with understanding and speaking. And I don't know if there's...
So language in general.
I don't know. I think they're still using the picture PECS cards to some degree. But we didn't get that for the first year that people were trying to work with him. And we figured out that he could communicate using these cards. and we had no idea.
Right.
Wow. So he was nonverbal.
Nonverbal.
And he became communicative.
Yes.
That was a huge leap.
Huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
Wow. And then that set the stage for him to be able to be educated in the public school system then.
Well, we had years that were challenging, and
Yeah.
I can talk about it now if you'd like.
Yeah.
But we had him. We wanted him to be in the same school that my older son was in, and the principal at the school didn't want to even give him a chance to come in because we were open with the diagnosis.
Yes.
And we wanted to be open with the diagnosis to, and eventually someone on the board of the school came in and said, you have to give this kid a chance. So we did.
Wow.
So we were
Good.
able to have him there.
Yeah.
We supported him with an aide for 3 years.
Wow. So he was already, this is a private school, obviously,
Yeah.
because you've got a board that
Yes.
could make that decision. And then on top of paying for tuition for 2 kids to be in a private school, you also were paying an aide to be there one-on-one with your son.
We felt it was the best thing
It
for
is.
him
Yeah.
at the
the best
time.
And you were lucky
Yeah.
you had the
Thank goodness.
resources
We were very,
to do
very,
this.
very blessed to be able to
Yeah,
do that.
very
And,
lucky.
some of his friendships later in life, those children, know him from those early years too. And then through high school saw him grow, and
Yeah.
they're, some big supporters.
That's great.
And I'm sure Melissa, that it takes a village, and
100%.
friends and family.
It's
You can't-
everything.
Yeah, it's everything.
Yeah.
It's the roots that reach out, it's when you have that foundation, that's how it's strong. And,
Yeah.
and that's how you can stay connected. And I feel like that's knowing, especially in these days where everything is all, the TikTok and all the social media stuff, because it can rob us of an opportunity to recenter. And when you have friends and family and you have that village, it anchors you in a way that I think is life-giving and life-changing. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. And, my son also had a diagnosis when he was young too, because he was nonverbal. Well, his verbosity was questionable because I was also a late talker myself. I did not speak until I was 4 years old. So when my son wasn't really talking at all at 3, I started to get a little nervous. Like, is it the same thing? Is it different? I don't know. So we had him assessed, and he ended up having a year of speech therapy at 3 years old. And after about 6 months, I asked the speech therapist how things were going. Like, did she see, because he was starting to communicate better. And she said that she thought that he was probably, if she was to test him then, had already surpassed most 3.5-year-olds. So it didn't take much.
Long. It just needed
didn't take much, but
support.
it's just that support. And, maybe if I had been given support, I would have been speaking earlier too. I don't know. But I think some of the idea behind why kids don't talk sometimes, even, normative, not neurodivergent children
Neurotypical.
is, neurotypical, because their parent is so on top of everything and giving them everything they need that they don't need. There's no necessity. Like,
sometimes.
I was an only child until I was
Right.
6. So I just had my mom,
Right.
and who just catered to everything. So maybe I didn't need to speak. Who knows? I'm sure that's not why your son wasn't speaking it too.
Well, I think we know why he wasn't speaking.
Yeah, you know now.
And, to the credit of other autistic families, being aware and trying to get help, early intervention over and over and over again, there are differences in how those kids do.
Yeah.
So some of the tendency is to be in denial. And I think that's the biggest message I would give a young parent, is try to do everything you can not to be in denial.
Yeah.
I met a family once. I think I was at like a fair or something, and then a year later happened to run into her. I didn't really remember meeting her, and she said, "I met you last year at this fair." And I said, "Oh, nice to see you. Nice to meet you again." And she said, "We were in denial, but now we're not. And so we're ready." And they just weren't ready. And everyone's on a journey, and everyone's on their path to get ready and to figure out how they want to approach. Some people are super proactive right out of the gate. And some people, and also sometimes there's one parent who's like, I'm telling you. And another parent who's like, not my child. And that rift can be really challenging and delay treatment as well. But I also feel like I work with kids who are teens. I've worked with adults, and because of the plasticity in our brain, I feel like while early intervention is ideal, it's also not the end of the world. And I've had people say, is it too late? It's like, no, it's not too late at all. Let's go. If he's 12, if he's 30, it's okay. Let's do this. So it's never, oh, we missed our window. He's over 5. Forget it. But it's ideal because obviously, just like bones, I think heal so fast in little kids. I'm right. Yeah. We really, it's like a sponge. That's different than, it's harder to learn language when you're older than when you're little. But I do think that being able to, to know that it's not too late. It's never too late. Yeah. So whenever you need help, go get it. Whenever you're ready to give it and get it, take it. Yeah.
Well, even like with Jay, he was showing signs of, he was never doing what he was supposed to be doing in school. So when the class was doing math, he had a Harry Potter book in his lap. But this was in the 1st grade. So he read all of the Harry Potter books in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade. He read them all the way through. And the teacher would occasionally find the book in the lap and his head on his desk. So that was a common thing. The kids always thought he was sleeping in class because he had his head on the desk and he was reading. So this kid loved to read. He was a sponge. And he was bored with traditional school. But, if they gave him an aptitude test, he could do everything that they were teaching the kids in class. He just didn't want to do it when they wanted him to. So, and then we had a later diagnosis that he was ADD type 2, which is the highly focused, inattentive type. So he could, and probably still to this day, just super highly focused on whatever he was interested in doing and could give a crap about anything else going on in a classroom that he didn't want to do. Yeah. But, this is, of course, a diagnosis also that you have to label your kid because, they love reading. That's a problem.
I know, isn't that funny?
Yeah, like what do you do with a kid like this? I'd be angry because he wouldn't do his homework, but what would he be doing? He'd be reading. Well, so also, you punish your kid by taking books away from him? I mean, it's like, okay, I'm taking your books away. It's like, well,
it
that
would have
doesn't
been
make
amazing
sense.
if that school had been able to, or if the teachers or the admin had been able to differentiate learning enough for him where he wasn't feeling...
Wouldn't that have been nice? Yeah, no, but that's not what happened because in the public school where we went, by the 3rd grade, the teacher was knocking on his head and saying, are you in there?
How nice.
Absent-minded professor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's
so
lovely.
that was in a 3rd grade gifted and talented education tracked class that happened to him
atrocities,
in.
man.
And I didn't find out about it until months after it happened. I was horrified.
Because kids don't tell. This is the air they're breathing.
He would never tell me that happened.
Gosh.
But some of the other kids in the class told me about it. And I was just devastated when I heard that. That led me to get, him checked out. And, at the time they were just starting to do this thing where they would measure people's brainwaves and they could tell you, what, where on the spectrum they were. I mean, I don't know if have you ever heard about this kind of diagnostic? And also they had therapies that they could help kids that, were on the spectrum with, like, they'd connect your head into all these wires and they'd have you play a video game and they could change your brain waves.
Like biofeedback?
Yes, that's exactly what it was.
I mean, biofeedback, I don't know your opinion. I've seen it be really effective with a few scant people, and I've seen people spend a ton of money and have it not always be effective, but when it is effective, and I don't know who it will be effective with, it's really effective.
Well, I would, follow that with the thought that as a parent, you want to do anything and everything within your power.
100%.
Right.
And there was a period of time where hyperbaric oxygen was the craze with autistic kids. And you want to think that there's something that you can do. And you'll spend, if you have the resources, you will. Course. And sadly, there's some people that are taking advantage of families.
Did you ever try something weird
We
like
tried, intravenous immunoglobulin was a treatment. There was thought that there was an immune type of problem, and one of the doctors did some scientific testing, and it looked like he may have that. So we tried it, and, probably did not do much of anything, and it's not a standard treatment, but we did try it. And as a parent, you want to try anything you think might help.
Yeah, I mean, and biofeedback can be helpful. So it's, if it works, my gosh, it can be a game
But there
changer.
hasn't been any like really good research done on any of these therapies to see
And I
if
think
they.
biofeedback has some. I
Some-
do.
Yeah, there
Some.
was
There
some
is
because
some.
we tried it only because there had been some early signs that it could be really helpful. So we kind of started to go down that gangplank
I know the
with
M.Ed
it.
clinic is
And
one.
some of the
Yes,
and some of
exactly.
the nutraceutical, that's very popular. Some of the vitamins and such.
Yes.
And some may hold promise, but there's something called the placebo effect, where 50% of the time you think there's going to be improvement when there may or may not be. So
Right.
I think it's hard because there's so many people thinking that so many treatments may be a benefit, and you want to try. You
Yeah.
wanna
And
try.
I mean,
Try
I'm a
anything.
throw spaghetti against a wall person, see what sticks. But if it's harmful, or if you can't afford, but if you want to increase zinc and vitamin C or whatever, things that are, or fish oil, I think it can be great. And it's a pretty low cost risk, and it's a pretty, safe. It's pretty benign, right? It can't be bad to have a little bit more zinc in your body, right? So if those things help, it's a great thing. Be complex, all that stuff. But I just wanted to say that I really commend you for bravely being so forthcoming with the diagnosis and being grateful to have it, and knowing that being honest about it was the only way, even if it was met with derision, or if somebody was not so gracious in receiving that information. But you did it because it was the right thing to do, regardless of how anyone
Absolutely.
reacted. And I commend you.
Thank you very much
the
for
right
that.
thing to do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because multiple elementary school teachers and counselors who maybe didn't have the experience or were a little reluctant to work with him when he was young are some of his biggest fans now. And to their credit, they take credit for his success because they were involved in the hard years.
Yeah. And it sounds like there were many hard years. Maybe.
There were several.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were the hardest things as he started to progress educationally?
So, the social was kind of the least of our concerns. He was having a hard time academically with some of the comprehension. And so
Reading comprehension.
reading and some of the subjects that required reading, social studies, history.
Yeah.
So we made a tough decision to move him for middle school to a different school. And he didn't want to go there. But in the scheme of things, that really made a huge positive difference in his outcome.
Now, wouldn't that be nice if that type of special education was offered to all children?
Yeah.
I think thank you for bringing that up, because the other thing I thought of earlier when we were talking about it is when we moved out of South Orange County to the private school, the Capo district, the superintendent was basically saying, look at these special ed kids, and you parents who are not special ed parents, these kids are taking dollars from your kids. He was pitting
Oh my gosh.
parents against parents for the monies of the school. And I was like, what, are you kidding me?
That's
I
unconscionable.
had
That's what they did.
I had some experiences with the public school system as well. That led me to take my son out. Yes, because when he was in the 5th grade, we were still having issues with him really needing more. First of all, he was tracked in a gifted and talented track, which I don't know if they're still tracking kids that way, but they do seem to track kids that are, moving at a faster pace. They track them together, usually throughout their elementary school education. And then you get tracked, when you're in middle school, they start putting you like in the more advanced math. You go to the math level that you're at, they test you, and they put you in, you end up with those same kids again, because they're moving faster than everybody else. So, he was in this program, but the problem is that Jay didn't really like all of the stuff that, he had to learn, because he was, this inattentive, diagnosis. He only wanted to, read what he wanted to read and do the kind of math that he wanted to do, but he wasn't moving forward as he could have with the things that he was good at. They were keeping him back. And I asked the school about that. I'm like, what are you doing to actually provide these kids with a gifted and talented education? I mean, you're calling it that, but what are you offering them? And the principal said to me, and I will never forget it, he said, "This might not be the right school for you." And I was like, you know what? That really made me mad.
Yeah.
Because I have a kid that's smart. He is not a troublemaker. He's not wasting taxpayer dollars. And you're telling me that you can't educate him or any other kids that are like him because, you're only offering a one-size-fits-all?
Yep. If you're not middle of the road, if you're exceptional in either direction, you're out of line.
The concept that wasn't really there was twice exceptional. And I'm not an expert in the twice exceptional, but a lot of these kids are exceptional.
And they could be. I mean, like you said, tell us more about how you ended up with finding out that your son was actually a math genius.
So after the 3 years of middle school, when he came into high school, he figured out that he had exceptional math abilities. And so much so that, as a proud dad now, I can say he tested in the top 1% on the standardized tests. He was accepted to USC, which I could not have fathomed when he was in middle school.
Amazing.
And during COVID, his skills allowed him to excel and graduate in 3 years.
In 3 years, 3 out of 4, normally 4.
That would be correct.
And mostly 5. But I have to say that most people, I think that's, if the world can hear what you're saying, which is, I never could have fathomed that back in middle school, here we would be, a few years later, where he's top 1%, we discovered that he has this gift and he got into, and so recognizing nothing stays the same. And whatever challenges you're facing now, they may not be, hopefully, what you're facing down the road. And I think knowing that there is always a progression, there's always growth, there's always movement, and to know that nothing stays the same.
I think that that's a great point. And even in the non-academic world, we had no idea that he might be inclined to be involved in sports. There was a challenger league where he participated, absolutely loved it. And that is his number one passion, is sports, athletics. He became an umpire when he was 15.
Love it.
And I have a funny story about that we can talk about now or later, but it just was something that we had no idea he would even be interested in until we tried it, Melissa.
Right.
So you just have to keep trying things until something
works.
I
think until you treat them as normally as you can and get them involved in activities that every other
Exposing a child to different things.
Expose them to different things, even if you think they may or may not be inclined or interested. You never know.
I just had dinner with a family, and their oldest son, I think he's 25, maybe he's 26, and he had never slept away like at a sleepover. He'd never been even to a family, like even grandparents or no one's aunt or uncle, never been interested in really kind of venturing out, was very homebody, never really wanted to, and almost not agoraphobic, but just, this side of it. And something came like in the mail or something about like this opportunity, this camp or this experience. And he was like, I want to go. And they're like, I'm not sure how that's going to work out. I was like, I really want to go. And he moved. He went there, loved it, moved there as an adult, and is thriving. He has a job. He's like, this is my home now. He's in a different country.
That's incredible.
And he is so happy. And they talk about never being able to imagine. They never would have thought that this child who couldn't really function outside of the home would be a trailblazer.
Incredible.
And so you don't know. So we let it unfold.
Yeah, just don't give up.
Don't give up on
these kids. You mentioned something interesting before we started. We were talking about genetics and autism, and you mentioned that when your wife was pregnant with your third.
Yeah, it was actually, I think, before the pregnancy. But we were getting treatment for autism, and one of the local doctors really was very discouraging. And she said something to the effect of, if you think you want to have another child, you must know that there's a 50% or greater chance that that child will be autistic. And in retrospect, what a terrible thing to say. And not only,
despicable.
And not
not
even
only
accurate.
not only is it not accurate because maybe it's 20%, but to say that to a parent, I think is just unconscionable.
I agree.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's disgraceful.
It is. It's terrible. And why wouldn't we want to have kids with autism? I'm just putting it out there. I mean,
Well, the only thing I
I'm
can
a fan.
the only thing I can say in that provider's is if she's only seeing young children and diagnosing them, and not seeing them 20 years later and what they're doing,
Or 2 months later, or
whenever. But it was just it
That's
was
a good point. If you're just in an office offering and handing out diagnoses, it's hard when back when people used to say, which you don't say anymore, but someone is low functioning. To me, it was they were just missing I worked with a child who had autism and also was having many seizures like every hour, and he struggled. And sometimes when he would have them, it was a petite mal, and he would just sort of look like he was spaced out, but he was having a seizure, and so there were a lot of challenges, and he struggled. I don't think he had a particularly high IQ. So there were challenges, and he was the most willing apprentice he was game for anything. He would help you. He was kind. He was thoughtful. He would show up and he would be there by your side. And I thought, yes, please.
Yeah.
So what looks like, oh, this child is, has more challenges than someone else. He was the best. He was such a wonderful human and is still, and also thriving now as a young adult. But if we just dismiss, summarily out of hand that because this is what it says on this paper, that this means X, Y, or Z, you're missing the actual human being.
I agree,
Is
100%.
that person.
And also just because I know there are profoundly many families that, even in my own family, who are not, really functioning as adults.
Yeah.
Even those people bring joy to those families.
Absolutely.
And positivity.
yeah. Have either of you seen the show Love on the Spectrum?
Yes.
Okay. I love this show. I mean, and maybe I'm biased because I've seen the show and I see how happy these people are as adults and how much joy they bring to this world that it makes
To each other and to their families.
They're different, but like even like the way that they're so innocent and so like it's everything about them. It's just so sweet. It's so wholesome. I don't know.
I'm either smiling from ear to ear when I'm watching the show, or I'm crying tears of like
it's
joy
just
and warmth. It's
such
like it's beautiful because what I hope it provides is a little glimpse and insight into humanity, right? There's a humanity, there is love, there's a desire for connection.
Oh yeah.
And then I think people assume that there isn't, because someone is socially awkward or is challenged in social situations, that they don't want a connection, and that's the biggest misnomer. So I think that knowing that there's a true desire and that it may look different, but every relationship looks different. I mean, nobody has a relationship that is an Instagram you know what I mean? The BS that people perpetrate.
The social media that
it's
maybe
not real.
Maybe they don't have their own social media account, or they're not OnlyFans models, or whatever. But
just knowing that you can create a really beautiful connection that just might be different from yours, and that's all of life right now. It's like nobody can see past their nose in front of their face about how just because something is different doesn't make it evil, doesn't make it bad, doesn't make it something that shouldn't exist, And so the idea of, oh, don't risk it. Someone told me that also before I had my second child. Don't risk it. It's like playing Russian roulette. And I thought, what a disgusting thing to say. How dare you? But then I had to release it because I thought that was a her problem, not a me problem. And I'm so grateful.
I think the world would be a better place if we all saw the glass as 90 or 99% full.
Yeah.
And these kids give you the opportunity to do that, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're neat kids though. I know, I don't know if Daniel's had a girlfriend or if he's dating or if he talks about that, but from what I've seen from the TV show, it looks like the parents are so hopeful that it's going to work out, that, maybe I'll be able to pass this child on to another family that can help us. We can work together now to help these two together instead of just me dealing with, or just our family dealing with this one lonely, child that really does want that connection. We could, it would be so nice.
I think that the community
everything.
is everything.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Has Daniel brought a girl home yet?
Not yet.
Yeah.
But like his older brother, I think he's, wanting to and waiting for the right one.
Yeah.
So, and he's open to that. So
Great.
that's
Yeah.
I
exciting.
love that.
Yeah. You have a daughter with autism that you think might be interested in Michael's son.
Reach out. It's a good family.
We'll be a matchmaker here.
That's very sweet.
So what is Daniel up to these days? What is he doing?
So he, after USC, got his master's degree online in data analytics from one of the top programs in the country at Georgia Tech.
Amazing.
He is teaching. He's gotten excellent reviews. He's faculty part-time at Georgia Tech, and he's working for a local real estate company doing analytics. And so, again, he's exceeded all expectations that we ever had and making the world a better place.
Aww.
And that's
I know.
that's the dream.
I mean,
beautiful.
that is the dream,
That's the
isn't
dream.
it?
Amazing.
Yeah.
So
You have an older child too.
Yes.
Your son who I believe he went to
I
Stanford.
think, as we talked about, supporting the family is important. And our time was occupied with 2 kids, and we're blessed that the older son did not go off the rails and has done very well.
What's he up to?
And actually, that also brings up another point, which is a lot of autistic families, the non-autistic kids have good or exceptional abilities. Hyperlexia, I think, is one of the strengths. But our older son is an attorney in the Washington, D.C. area.
Amazing.
I did not know that.
And he,
Fabulous.
also has had a exceptional career trajectory.
That's
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah, really nice. It's so good to hear all this wonderful things. Where do you see the field of autism consulting heading in the next 5 to 10 years? And what do you think, Mike? Do you think that things will change in terms of what families need in time?
I mean, I think I'm grateful to work. I've worked with a 6-week-old baby, and I've worked with a 54-year-old man, and everything in between. So I think that certainly as kids are getting older and are functioning in the world, and I think career, like I was talking about a little bit, there's this real need and right now a dearth of education in the workforce of how to accommodate and support someone who has a diagnosis. And I think that finding a way to really get the word out there and create programs for corporations to help everyone in that corporate world to feel equipped and to feel aware and educated in. It could be just such a simple shift to help offer support and help someone to be successful. So I think that it's watching the aging population. I don't mean like aging into their 90s yet, but as the population of a profound amount of diagnoses, grows, I think we have to address that next stage. So out of school, into the workforce, into family life. And
so you could be helping Mike's son, with whatever his challenges could be, that maybe it would be better coming from you than from him.
Often. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that just help. I mean, if it's meal prep, if it's not that I'm a chef, but if it's anything where, how can I help streamline my life? How can I help my daily world to feel a little bit more successful and viable and approachable if there are issues? Because some kids are just great, but some kids, it's hard for them to clean, it's hard for them to prepare meals or eat healthy food, make good food choices. So it just depends. But I think that whatever the need is, supporting children as they grow into adulthood is the next step.
Mike, what do you think is the most significant challenge for people with autism today?
Well, I think for the children or the parents. So let's
go both ways.
I think that technology is, in some ways promising, but also a threat.
Yep,
And too
it's
much,
both of those.
I was
too
gonna
much,
ask you
too
about
much
that.
technology is not a good thing.
No.
You want these kids to have normal interactions. So I think finding the balance for the kid. I echo your point, Melissa, about the kids that are done with school. And my mom is passionate about this. She's part of a program, a national program called Project Search, which trains kids for work. And so
Amazing.
Children's Hospital here, when my dad passed away, they've sponsored a program there where they train the kids in the hospital to then be meaningful, workers.
And I want to help the people who our kids are working with. I want to help the staff and the coworkers to feel equipped, because that's often, if your work environment is lousy, or you feel threatened, or you just feel marginalized in your work environment, even if it looks on paper like he has a job and he's earning money and he has a successful job, but if he's miserable because the work environment is, caustic or cold, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
So I like helping to. That's my next level.
Is your son able to live independently?
Yes.
Completely.
Yes.
So he gets a paycheck. He manages his own money. He drives.
He's self-sufficient.
Everything.
I don't,
Amazing.
but I don't know percentage-wise what that looks like in the autism community.
Yeah.
So I don't want to
think it
give,
varies.
I don't
It
want to give
does.
false hope. I mean, we want to support the kids if they need help.
But this was not like
But
a questionable case of autism. It was clear.
He was profound.
It was
at a young
profound.
age.
So
And if you ask me again, if you asked me
Yeah.
that when he was in middle school, I would have said I would have never dreamed of that.
right.
So
right.
I don't know, I don't know. There's certainly going to be many, many, many
Yeah.
kids that do need help into
Yeah.
adulthood.
When your son was in high school, middle school, even elementary school, was he bullied? Did kids make fun of
Yes.
this? Okay.
There were, plenty of instances where he was.
Yeah.
And the school, I think, did a good job.
Good.
Yeah.
I don't always hear that.
Yeah.
They were pretty good, because I know, like, my son Jay was always he was kind of a very quiet and very kind. Like, he was always nice to everybody. Like, he would never tease a kid or bully anybody. Like, just so naturally, he was the one that they always put Daniel with when they would travel. Like,
so sweet.
because Jay would never complain. Never. He would never say to a
nice.
teacher, "I won't be with that kid in in a room," or "I won't." He would never do something like that. But when Jay
Well, I
would,
give Jay credit and his parents credit,
Well,
because that is something that can be learned.
it's interesting.
And I don't know if you wanted to touch, there are violent instances across the country, and unfortunately autistic kids that have those behaviors. And so how do we prevent that?
Yeah, that's a
And I
good
think
point.
parenting is part of it, and maybe luck is part of it too.
Maybe.
But
Like for myself, well, the fact that Jay was totally okay and benign with sharing a room with someone that might be a little bit quirky, Jay's quirky too. So, and Jay would acknowledge that, we're all a little bit quirky. But like even myself, like when I found out in my second year of college that my roommate was a quadriplegic who would need to have 24/7 care in our room, they had the resident hall advisor for my floor come and meet me. Oh, she's here. They wanted to make sure they got to me before I got to the room and found this, situation when I got to the room. And, they explained to me, you have a roommate that's going to be a little different. She's a quadriplegic and we're going to, we want to help you with this, get through. And they were like, is it going to be okay? And like, I just kind of like, I looked at my parents and I was like, I think so. I think it'll be fine.
good for you.
And, we went to the room and I met her and, I have to be honest, it was not an ideal situation. I mean, she had to have people come and take her to use the restroom every time she had to go. And I did not want to be her caretaker. I was 19 years old,
Right.
and
Trying to be in
I
college,
just
right.
wanted to have fun and, study and just be normal. I didn't want to be taking care of anybody. So I really made it a point, like, not to step into that role. They
think that's great.
They would have loved it if I had.
No,
Let me
I think
tell
it's-
you, the
I think you
parents
made a
would have
healthier
been
choice.
thrilled. But the hard part for me was sometimes I would see her suffering.
Yeah.
Oh.
And that was hard, really hard for me, because I was like always torn. Like, do I step into the role, or do I just, wait with her for the people to get here?
Oh, I thought she had 24-hour care.
Well, she did, but they were in our dormitory. They were other students that were paid to come in and help her.
Oh my
So
gosh,
she would
I didn't
depend
realize.
on them to come in, and she would call them.
I see.
We had a phone in the room. She'd have
Right.
to call them. We didn't have cell phones back
right,
then.
right,
That
right.
wasn't an option. And if they didn't pick up the phone, what was she going to do?
I
She'd
did
just have
not
to keep
realize.
trying, or she'd leave a message, and then she'd
gosh.
wait. And,
Well, I give you credit for managing that.
I-
I'm sure it
I
was,
didn't
as
know-
a young
I
19-year-old.
know.
hard.
I
That's
was
hard.
not thrilled about it. I mean, I was really hoping I was going to have like a great roommate situation, because my year before had been terrible also with room. I mean, not that it was terrible, but I had had roommate issues so bad my first year of college that they actually kicked her out of my room. One of the
Whoa.
roommates, they had to remove her and put her in another part of the hall. Yeah.
Wow.
So I was really hoping that this was going to be a good one. Oh yeah, and then the other roommate they gave me got pregnant while we were
Wow.
Yeah, and she had the baby the following year. So
Lots of
You
adventures.
had a run of roommates.
right, and then I know I had 3 in a row. I could probably write a book about my
Wow.
experiences.
Wow.
But that was part of the universe telling me that I was going to have to learn how to deal with difficult situations. And it has helped me, I think, deal with a lot of difficult situations in my life, early on, having to accept that it's not always perfect. And, sometimes you have to be the bigger person and step up.
I have a question for you. I have a family that I know, and sometimes I feel like I seldom hear this, but I've heard another practitioner say that they hear this all the time, but that the child who has a diagnosis of autism will say, well, I can't do that because I have autism. In the families I work with, I have never heard that. And maybe it's because the families who work with me know that I'm a straight shooter, and they're like, that's not going to fly. But I was wondering if your son ever felt like, oh, I can't do that because...
We never heard that. And
That's good.
and if we
I'm glad.
did, I don't think I would have let him continue to believe that.
Yeah, it's true. Thank you. I love that. Because I think that it becomes,
A crutch.
well, and it becomes sort of an identity that is not healthy, that I can't do something because of this, instead of how can I figure out a way to do something that,
agree.
or work around or create a solution. I'm solution oriented. So yeah, I like that. So thank you. I just wanted to ask.
Sure. I wonder if that child heard that from somebody else and it kind of sunk in.
Trickles down. Interesting. Yeah, maybe. Right. If a parent is supporting that, sort of ideology.
Yeah.
You can't do that because you have autism. It's like that one teacher who said, well, this is as far as they'll go, and you'll show them.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have to wrap it up. But before we go, I know it's been so much fun. What is one thing that both of you wish more people understood about autism?
For me, I feel like there's often a disconnect and just a lack of awareness and educated understanding. And I think the more people can become informed or allow themselves to become informed, the more we create actual connections with real relationships. So I think that's what I would love to see. I would love to see that bridge.
Yeah, that's great. What about you, Mike?
I think it applies to any disability, or what I would call ability, is to be inclusive rather than excluding, because these autistic kids can add value to any conversation or relationship, in my opinion.
I totally agree with you. And with that, I want to thank you so much for giving me your time today and sharing your stories, your insight. You're inspiring. Your message is inspiring. That regardless of whether you have an autism diagnosis when you're young or when you're my age, there's hope.
Yeah.
There's hope.
Absolutely.
Always.
And there's a lot of great things about people
Yes.
with autism that we have yet to discover. In fact, Mike didn't discover his son was a math savant until he was, 10 years into the diagnosis. So, but what a thrill, because he's now he's a professor.
Amazing.
I mean, it's kind of incredible.
Beautiful.
So thank you both, though. I think that
Jeanne, thank you.
this
Thank you very
was a
much.
really great episode, and I'm thrilled that we made this happen. Thank you so much.
Honored to be a part of this.
Thank you.
Thanks
Happy
so
to
much.
meet you
Thank
very
you.
much. Really grateful. Thank you.
Blaze It Forward is a campaign my family started in 2018 after our son Blaze was murdered. Blaze It Forward provides the inspiration to thousands of people to repair the world with intentional acts of kindness. If you would like to learn more about Blaze and how you can make a difference, check out www.blazebernstein.org or join our Facebook group at #BlazeItForward. You can also check out my website for this podcast at www.PeppTalksWithJeanne.com. There you can follow along with my podcasting adventures and learn more about my fascinating guests and their passion projects. I would like to thank all of the volunteers who help make my philanthropic endeavors a reality. Today that includes my producer, Eli Moskowitz, all of the volunteer crew members who join us, and a special thank you to my son, Jay Bernstein, for the original theme song you hear at the beginning and ending of each show. This has been another episode of Pep Talks with Jeanne. Until next time, keep on making this world a better place.